Ladies and gentlemen, the Knicks are 2 wins away from an NBA championship. Oh my goodness. I really can't believe what we're seeing here. That game was a cardiac type finish. The Knicks, I was about to make this video about how dominant the Knicks looked and just how impressed I was at their performance through the first, 3.5 quarters of this game, up by 15. Really just a 8-man, 1 through 8 type of performance where all the guys at certain junctures of this game, the game stepped up. But my goodness, the ending kind of brought a whole twist to this video where the Spurs go on a 14-0 run, even take the lead 104-102. And then Jalen Brunson with a clutch shot. Really, although I'm not saying like he had a good game, he had a bad game, but I don't even know if it's fair to call it a bad game with just how howling the Spurs were in terms of their physicality on him with their guards and how much they were able to get away with. I think is something that at least I saw on Twitter already. People are definitely talking about, and rightfully so. There was a lot of physicality that the Spurs guards were able to get away with, I think, if we're being real. But nonetheless, I think the Spurs, I think Stephon Castle had a fantastic game. I don't know what the box score exactly says. I think the box score says he did have a good game, but defensively, offensively, too, in that first half, he was terrific. I don't really even know how to process this game other than the fact that, man, the one thing was Wemby, man, that pass. Dude, you can't be doing that, man. Like, I think Wemby, this will be an experience where, look, and anyone who's watched these videos knows how consistent I've been with Wemby. My thing is, look, I think people are too quick to annoy him, the best player in the league. And that's just how I feel, right? He's a terrific player. Terrific, right? Defensively, he's already the best player in the league. He was the best player in the league defensively, probably as a rookie, arguably. Definitely since last season. He was going to be the defensive player of the year last season before he obviously went down with and missed time with the blood clot. But offensively, there's just a lot to be desired, a lot. And that clumsy turnover, you just can't be doing that in the NBA Finals. The missed shots, for example, any other top 10 offensive player in the league, when they're getting these good looks, and I think Wemby he had the 2 kind of 17, 18 footer, I think probably 15, 16 footers that any other top 10 offensive player in the league, you're asked to make both of those shots, let alone one, and he missed both. He just doesn't bring enough offensively, I think, from a shot creation standpoint. There's a lot to be desired. I know the box score actually looked like he had a terrific game, and he did for the most part. He had a great third quarter in particular, where I think he had, 13 points in that third quarter. But overall, I think the first half, he was pretty cool. It was the first quarter, he was pretty quiet. And then obviously down the stretch, there's just a couple of plays that, if you're going to be the best player in the world, man, I think we have to hold him up to a certain standard. And that's my thing with Wemby. I know it comes across like I'm a Wemby hater. And look, I don't really care if you call me a Wemby hater. Sure, I'll be a Wemby hater if you want to call me that. But I think it's just the fact that if we're going to say he's the best player or a top 3 player in the league, you have to hold him up to top 3 standards. And offensively, if I'm ranking Wemby as a player offensively, I think it's being generous calling him a top 10 offensive player. I do. It just... No other player of this level who's asked to be a number 1 option on a playoff team. Forget even a second round caliber team, a playoff team. Maybe playoff team's going too far because they're obviously Denny Avidas of the world, the CJ McCollum 2026s of the world. So I think Vic is a better player than those two offensively, but there's just a lot to be desired for a first team All-NBA MVP caliber player. And that's what we saw tonight. But man, there's just, from the Knicks side, man, I think it really was just a 5-man effort, or really a 4-man effort of the top 4 with OG, Cat, Mikal, and Jalen. Specifically with Carl, though, with Cat. And, Cat's gotten the praise that he deserves, and rightfully so, but he was so sensational tonight, he's one of the only players, and we've seen this through the first 2 games, where he's able to take Wemby to the basket off a closeout, where he's actually able to go all the way downhill on Wemby. And obviously his 7-foot frame with his athletic wing ability. There's not really any player in the league that has the frame and the athleticism that Carl has. And obviously that's kind of been the one player that Wemby's had the most trouble with. Obviously Wemby is Wemby, but Cat's ability to get downhill in the first place on a guy like Vic is incredibly impressive. OG's dunk, I don't know if it was on Vic. It was like where he went to the basket and like he was like underneath him. Yeah, like Wemby was like to his back, on his back, and he just slammed it. Like that was impressive. OG had some great moments in this game. Mikhail's midi. I mean, Mikhail had like the midi going in the Cleveland and the Philadelphia series. It was on par tonight in game 2. He could not miss a mid-range shot. He was like sort of 4 for 4 from 3. So Mikhail was money. But I really do think like the story of this game just overall was the amount of physicality the Spurs had on Brunson. Now, look, I know when I'm watching the game, like I'm not really thinking to myself that much about the refs because I typically like just don't like to even really think about the refs in these games. When you open Twitter though, that's like the first thing you see. And I think I'll share what I had on my notes for this game, but I was impressed, and I was kind of also having some commentary about like, yeah, the Spurs want some really physical defense here. Yeah, I think like I made a comment about how Stephon Castle's physicality has been tremendous on the Knicks ball handlers, and that's really what it was. If I were to go back and watch this game again, I'm sure that I would probably think that there was some missed calls. But when you're watching a game live, like that's not really my first thought to be like, oh, that should be a foul. Like, and especially when you're watching on like the TV broadcast, unless like they're showing a replay up close, it's really tough to like know if Brunson's near like the half court line, if he's being fouled or if it warrants a foul. Because obviously physicality is obviously always present in the playoffs. Like guys are being hit. So it's kind of tough for me, like when he's bringing up the ball, I'd be like, oh, that should be a foul, because I can't really see it. Like, the angle of the TV broadcast doesn't really show you that much. It just shows that the left side of the players or like the right side of the players, depending on obviously which way they're going down the court. But anyhow, the Knicks are 2 wins away from the finals. 13 straight wins, man. 13 straight. Like, look, I had this thought today, and I'm not going to because I think this is a whole separate video, but like, people keep dismissing the Knicks, and it's only because Jalen Brunson is what, 6'2"? If Jalen Brunson was listed as 6'6", and he actually was 6'6", 6'7", nobody would be dismissing the Knicks the way they are. And that's the reality. You're seeing it from obviously the national media, just the media at large, the fan bases, and then obviously within the NBA ecosystem itself, where like you had like Joel Embiid's kind of commentary in the 2024 playoffs. Who was it? Paul Reed before that Sixers series in 2024, where he's like, we're the better team, even though they were the 7th seed. There's been so much commentary from like all these different series that the Sixers definitely are like the first team to come to mind of like actually like kind of publicly having some comments. I think Kelly Oubre had some comments in 2024 as well. The Cavs analytical comments, like whatever. I think James Harden did have a bunch of and I think Donovan also said this, like, we're the better team. Obviously, Stephon Castle before this game said we're the better team. I don't know how to feel about that. I don't know how to feel about the we're the better team comment though, because like, look, I don't know what you want them to say. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't really know if I have a problem with that. I think like the Paul Reed stuff of like going out before the series and saying like we're gonna win the series, like, or like we wanted this matchup, like that's kind of like but even then maybe I shouldn't have a problem with that either, because at the end of the day, man, like when you're asked these questions, like what do you want the players and the athletes to say? It's like it's kind of a tough situation when the camera and the mic is being shoved in their face, being asked the same questions repeatedly at all these media availabilities. It's like, dude, what do you want the guy to say? So. Man, I just can't. Look, I admit, obviously, I'm a Knicks fan, so you guys know this. If you don't, I am a Knicks fan, so it's tough for me to really just kind of give neutral thoughts on this game, because my goodness, the Knicks are 2 wins away from the championship, and this is what they did versus Celtics, man. Like, this was a gritty win. I mean, the 14-0 run really kind of got me just off on how I felt about this game. It's like, dude, it felt like the Knicks just had like a lapse there for a second. It kind of felt like, I'm not one of the conspiracy theorists, but like, it kind of felt like Mr. Silver making a call down to the floor where it's like, guys, we want a long series here. It felt like, the Spurs are going to make a run and they're going to do their thing. Because it felt like the Knicks, like the lack of assertiveness on those offensive possessions when the Spurs were making that 14-0 run, like Brunson sat in the corner for one of those possessions. I mean, they were just getting like some really just like bad looks. It's like, dude, what is going on? Like, where's the urgency at to try to score the basketball? And then they caught a huge break with the Wemby turnover. That's really fortunate. You're really fortunate to have kind of the miscommunication there with Stephon Castle. I think it was Steph Castle who didn't see the ball, and that being that, because that's something that you don't ever really see in a even conference semifinals game in the second round. Like, you don't see, even in, I think, any playoff game, really, you don't see mistakes like that in the closing moments of playoff games. So the Knicks were extremely lucky there. But yeah, I mean, the Knicks survive. What did De'Aaron Fox say before the series? That, you know, they were going to trap Brunson or before game 2 rather, that they were going to trap Brunson, get the ball, or have anybody else score but Brunson, have anybody else take the shots. That was certainly the approach the Spurs took tonight. That was their plan. Get the ball out of Brunson's hands. Brunson actually dealt with the traps pretty good in that second, third quarter, really. It did kind of, I feel like, get to him a little bit, where in the fourth quarter, there was a couple sessions where he went to the corner when he's usually on the ball, and he's usually obviously consistently calling for the ball in the fourth quarter in those moments. But there was like 2 possessions where he went to the corner, was off the ball, which is rare for Brunson, being off the ball offensively, kind of just conceding being off the ball. But he did, I guess in fairness to him, make the clutch shot when they needed it, down 104-102. And the Knicks, dude, somehow survived. This is a team of destiny, it feels like, because, man, they just do it again. Do it again.